First of all, I'm Sarah Velasquez. I am the Communications Core Director for the K-INBRE. If you have not received emails from me, you probably will. And please answer my questions or I will find you and encourage you to answer my questions. Everybody knows. Today we have Sydney Fox, the Assistant Director of Career Services, correct, at Washburn. And she will be presenting to us about networking, I believe. So I am going to let her take over.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney. I am the Assistant Director of Career Services at Washburn University in Topeka. A little bit about what we do. I know that you all are kind of all across the state of Kansas. Yes. So a little bit about what we do, similar to the career services centers across the state institutions. Most of all of the institutions have a career center. We help with anything from resumes, cover letters, mock interviews, prepping for grad school, med school. We'll review documents. We'll have conversations about what those searches look like. So I can't speak for all of those institutions, but I do know that most of them offer those services and more around the same topics. And so if you all have questions, feel free to ask. I have a presentation prepared, so I will share my screen and we will chat through networking. I'm going to talk through LinkedIn as well. But if you have questions, feel free to share them in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask questions. I want you all to get whatever you want out of this. And so if you do have resume questions or any other things that you think the group would benefit from hearing an answer, feel free to ask those. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and get my screen shared. Okay. Do you all see my presentation? All right, perfect. So first off, what is networking? Networking is a mutually beneficial sharing of information. And what that means is that networking is not just one-sided. I think oftentimes people think, oh, I'm going to network with that person because I want that job, or I'm going to network with them because I want to make a connection in a certain field, or I want them to do me X, Y, and Z favor. But the thing about networking is it needs to be mutually beneficial. And so that means that if I'm networking with Sarah and I'm having a conversation with Sarah, I am willing to give and take from that relationship. And so I may, need something from Sarah, but in turn, that is going to be beneficial. That relationship needs to be beneficial to Sarah as well. And networking can happen anywhere. And so through something like this, I have expanded my network to include Sarah in that because we have built that connection through email. Even though Sarah and I have never met in person and just happened to connect over through me giving this presentation, but that relationship there can be beneficial to both Sarah and I. So networking also happens through other people. And so if there is a potential that I may, say a few years down the road, I am starting to look for a new job, my network can help that. And so I may connect with someone through a family member, or I may mention to someone that I work with of, I'm thinking about switching career fields, right? So I'm thinking about going into something else. They may have a connection there and be able to share their network with me, to benefit me and to benefit that potential person as well. So think of everyone. And the reason that I share all of this and that networking can happen anywhere is because if there is something you are passionate about or you're looking into, tell people that, because you don't know whose network may be able to benefit you, and who other people know and may be able to connect you with. So that leads me into why you network. So networking widens the connections that you have. So every person in your network has their own network. So there's this rule of 250. And what that means is that every person in your network has their own network, but every person connects with about 250 other people. And so if I have connections with 250 other people, and then Sarah builds this connection with me, Sarah now has her 250 people that she can network with, and in turn, my 250 people. Our 250 people may overlap. So there may be connections that we both are in our 250. So it may not be a total of 500 people. It might be more similar to 450 or something closer to that. But there is that rule of your network and then her network. And then we've now expanded both of our networks through building that connection and through just telling each other what we may be looking for. You never know who will have the connection you need, which goes back to feel free to tell people what you're looking for. And so if you are getting to a point where you're like, okay, need to start working on a resume and I need to start doing this. I've had students multiple times that have come into my office that I say, okay, what are we building your resume for? And then that allows them access to my network. So I have multiple times said, oh, I think I know someone that does something like that. Let's connect you. And that's part of what I do. And I've had students that have received internships because they were able to utilize my network. And there's been students that have come in to our office before that was like, yeah, I do hair on the side. And we've had people in our office that have gone and got their hair done based on that network connection. And so you never know who that person may be. So when you're approaching someone, this is fairly typical things. So whether this be at a career fair, at a hiring event, at a job interview, or just around campus or in a class, all of these things, always smile. I know that may sound silly, and I know that there's some people that just is not natural for them, but a smile can really build trust in a relationship. So I tell students a lot in mock interviews that a smile can go a long ways. So if you're nervous, a smile can help ease that nerve, because you smile, typically people smile back to you, and it helps build trust in that relationship. But it also just kind of eases tension and breaks the ice. Right now, I would say ask for a handshake. There are a lot of people that post-COVID don't necessarily shake hands. There are a lot of people that have gone back to shaking hands. So we are still in the state of ask for a handshake. Some people are much more into fist bumps and elbow bumps, any of those things. But a lot of people have gone back to handshakes. So still kind of in the state of, is it okay if I shake your hand? Because that also is a trust builder there as well. Introduce yourself to someone, depending on who you are meeting and who you are, getting in that connection with, will depend on what your introduction is. And so if you are at a career fair or meeting with a professor or going into a job interview, you introduce yourself in different ways. But typically first name, last name. And it's never bad to say, I'm a student at X, Y, and Z institution. This is my year and my major. Those are never bad things for people to know about you, because that's always a good thing to know. Always look for a name tag as well. And the reason we say that, yes, that person may say their name. Sometimes it's good to see how someone spells their name as well. And so if you are at an event or meeting someone on campus or a job interview, look for a name tag just to see spelling, and that helps make that connection. So then if you do receive an email from them or want to look them up on LinkedIn afterwards, you've seen that spelling of their name, which can be really helpful. So going into introducing yourself, and a little bit about what to include, have an elevator speech, which is really a 30 to 60 second personal commercial, is what we call it in our office. Think about this as like quick introduction to yourself. So this specifically talks about alumni. Alumni are great networks to have. So every institution, I've been a student at a couple, every institution is going to tell you our alumni are so helpful and everyone is so passionate to be a insert mascot name here, right? I have been a student at the University of Kansas. I've been a student at Washburn. I now work at Washburn. Every institution is going to tell you a very similar thing. And there's a lot of truth to that. In a little bit, I'm going to show you LinkedIn and how to find alumni on LinkedIn. But alumni typically are very passionate to help students that are at their institution. So sharing your institution with an alum and what you want to do can be a large network builder. There is a large network amongst alumni of an institution. And going back to that 250 rule, those alums have connections and a network of approximately 250 people that they also may be able to connect you with. Also note, so in this 30 to 60 second personal commercial, you want to stand out amongst all of the others. And so if you're going into a field that requires an internship, think through of like, okay, so I know that everyone else has probably had an internship. And so I want to share maybe what my internship did and something that sets me apart. So think past your job responsibilities and your job description. Think of those accomplishments that you did in a job. Those don't have to be awards. They may just be, I worked, put in extra time and I got to do an extra thing, or something your supervisor has told you you're really good at. All of those things are stuff that can set you apart and help you stand out amongst other people. So a sample personal commercial, the first things that someone says, insert your institution here. So my name is blank. I will be graduating from your institution with a bachelor of blank in blank. So when I say all of those blanks, you should state out your whole institution. And I would tell you the same thing on your resume. And so, for example, you can't see my diplomas in the back, but I have a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies. And so I would say out that full thing. So I would say I graduated from Washburn University with a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies in May of 2020, and then went on to graduate with a Master's of Science in Education from the University of Kansas in May of 2022. And then, but for you, so then you would say upon graduation, I'm looking into going into blank. I know that some of you may be thinking med school, maybe grad school. All of those things are really great. And so share that, especially if I don't know where all of you range in your college experience, but if this is something that like, okay, you're currently looking into those places and you're networking with someone who potentially may have known someone that went to a grad school at that institution or went to a med school somewhere that may have connections that could be really helpful for you to learn about the experiences of students. Things about med schools and grad schools is when you visit them, you're going to hear all of the good things, right? So sometimes it is helpful to hear from someone who went to that institution that may say, yeah, these things are really great. And you want to be cognizant of X, Y, and Z thing. Those network connections can sometimes go a little bit deeper than what an institution may or may not share about themselves. I'm not going to have you all create your own personal commercial, but I did want you to see this slide because this is some things. So I encourage you to take a picture of this, to write these things down. So after this, you can share your personal commercial and you have an idea of what things you would want to include when meeting other people in a professional capacity. So think about what you would want someone to know when they leave meeting you. What do you want them to remember? What skills do you have? What kinds of jobs are you looking for? And then always remember that your commercial should sound like you. So what you share about yourself shouldn't be my words of you. It should sound like you. Everyone talks a little bit differently. Everyone sometimes puts phrases, sentences in different ways. And so all of those are good to know. And I don't want you to just plug in to the sample personal commercial that I shared. I want you to really make it sound like you and put some of your own personality in that. So networking can happen anywhere. And one of the biggest places that networking can happen online is through LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a professional social media account. And what I'm going to tell you about LinkedIn is that a lot of networking can happen on it. That is true of all social media, but specifically LinkedIn in a professional sense. And so make a LinkedIn profile if you don't have one already, make it 100% complete, and then utilize all information and experiences that you have. Oftentimes on a resume, you are cutting some things because they're not relevant or they're not recent. So your resume is going to show the highlights. It's going to show the most relevant, the most recent, and like the accomplishments that you did in that job in that experience. But your LinkedIn profile can have all of that. So it can have anything and everything that you want a future employer, a future grad school, a future colleague to know about you on there. And then reach out to others and connect on LinkedIn, and then follow other people and send a personalized message. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to share my LinkedIn screen, and I will show you how to do all of that. Are there any questions at this time? Okay. Okay, can everyone see my LinkedIn profile? Okay, perfect. So when you go to LinkedIn, you're going to get a home screen similar to this, where you see all of your people you are following, some ads and other things, but you see everything that people have done. That is your home screen. So in my network, I can see people who have followed me. For example, there is Sarah right there. And so all of those things are great. So what we'll do here is my favorite feature, and one of the best features that I think LinkedIn has to offer is on your institution. So if you go to your institution's page, there is this alumni tab. If you click on alumni, I can see anyone who has tied themselves to Washburn University on this tab. I can see where they live, where they work, anything that they have put out on LinkedIn. So this says there are 28,000 alumni on here. This may also be including some like the current students. So anyone who has tied themselves to Washburn. And so I can go down and see where they work. So if I have a student that wants to go into healthcare of some point, I can go into where they work. And you can see that Stormont Vale Health in Topeka is one of the largest employers of Washburn students. We do not have 482 alumni working at Washburn. This is also our current students that have put on their LinkedIn that they are a student at Washburn University as their job, which so that is why that number is so high. But you can kind of see what employers Washburn students go to. And then you can see what do most people do. So it looks like we have 3,212 alumni that are on LinkedIn that work in some sort of healthcare. So if I click on that, I can now see where do these 3,200 alumni work. Most of them work at Stormont. Some of them work in the University of Kansas Health System. Some work for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Some are probably current students. And then some have designated the University of Kansas Health System. I'm assuming that says St. Francis campus because that's the one that's in Topeka. And then you can see where they live. And so for a Washburn student that wants to go into healthcare, let's say they want to go into Kansas City. And so you can then click on the Kansas City metropolitan area, and I'm just shrinking this down further. So then I can see that there are 54 that work in the University of Kansas Health System, 41 Children's Mercy, LMH, Olathe, all of those. So let's say I want to go work for Children's Mercy in Kansas City. I can now see what alumni of Washburn work at Children's Mercy in Kansas City. And so this shows me that all of these people work there. If I am a student that I'm wanting to go into this, I will maybe want to meet someone that works there. I can see potentially what they do. So all of these people have their job title on here. Now, I can connect with anyone that is a second connection to me, which means they are connected to one of my connections. And I can hit the connect button. And if I do that, it is going to pop up connect here. So it's going to pop up with this screen. So it says I can customize this invitation. I can then click add a note. If it is someone you don't know, I would always encourage you to add a note. I do not typically connect with people that I don't know unless they've added this note. Anyone on this call, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, but please tell me that you came to a presentation of mine so I know who you are. If you are a Washburn student, I will connect with any Washburn student, but I will also connect with all of you. Just put in this note. So I can add this message here. And so if I wanted to connect with Ashley, I would tell Ashley how I know her. And if I don't know her, I'm going to say, hi, I'm a student at Washburn University. I see that you're an RN at Children's Mercy in Kansas City, and that's somewhere that I'm really interested in working after graduation. And I was wondering if you would be my connection on LinkedIn. I wouldn't ask them of too much in that first message, just a connection, because you've now added them to your network, and now you may have opened yourself up to potentially some of those third connections on there. And so if you see someone that's a third connection, which means a connection of yours is connected with a connection of theirs. And so like you got a lot of people in between you. And so the more people you connect with, the more opportunities you have to connect with people. And typically LinkedIn is not going to let you connect with third connections because you potentially don't know them. And so think through that when you're doing this and who you want to connect with. So I would then write out my message to Ashley and then I would hit send. So you want to make sure you click that add a note button. So very cool feature of LinkedIn. Let's look up. So you can do this with any of the institutions that you have attended. You can also do it with institutions you haven't attended. But like I said earlier, people really like to hear that you're an alum of an institution that they were an alum of. So I would definitely add that in there as well. But LinkedIn can be a really good place. Something that is fun about LinkedIn is it will say, this person's been at their job for 5 years, or this person's been at their job for 1 year. And so you can share those things. And I've found that fun even in just with friends that I went to college with. Just a fun way to reconnect with them on LinkedIn and congratulate them at being at their job for X number of years. And so that is a really cool feature that I like of LinkedIn. And then you often see people that you can connect with people that may have your job, but at a different place, or have similar, a similar job to you, and they may share like exciting things that they're doing in their job. And it's a good way to network with people and find new things to do at the job that you're going into, or any of those things. Any questions about LinkedIn?
If you got your picture taken, we give Sydney, we do free headshots for all the students if they want them. If you got your picture taken, LinkedIn is an excellent place to put your professional picture that we took. So
Absolutely. And that goes with like making that profile complete. Your LinkedIn profile is more likely to get noticed if it has a picture on there. And so I highly recommend having that headshot. If you have a professional headshot, that is highly recommended to use a professional headshot, or at least a really good picture of yourself. Preferably don't put a selfie in your LinkedIn profile. That's for other social media. This truly is more of a professional social media. And so, but a really good place to utilize that professional photo. One other thing I want to talk about, or just share with you all, I'm going to go back to this screen. We will often post stuff on our career services social media, so I want you all to have that. Even if you're not a Washburn student, we sometimes share like tips and tricks on there, share things like you can put on your resume. But one thing that I really like is our Pinterest page. And so if you are someone that is like, I have no idea what professional attire means anymore, we have a Pinterest where it will talk through, what does business casual mean? What does professional dress mean? And so you can kind of see what is the difference in that, and what should I wear for an interview or a grad school tour or any of those things. And it shows, we have pictures and examples on there of a little bit of that dress. So I highly recommend checking that out as well. And then remember that what we hear from our employers is an employer believes that they will never see you dressed as well as the first time they met you. So what that means is the first time an employer meets you, whether that is in class, at a career fair, at an interview, they never expect you, they expect that to be your best. So if you know that you are meeting an employer, dress to impress, dress your best, because that you're setting their expectations. And so make sure that those are good expectations that you're setting. Any questions? I am also willing to chat. If someone has a question about resumes, cover letters, grad school search, med school search, I'm also willing to chat about that. I did not put my information on here, but I will put it on here real quick so you all can see that. And you all can reach out if need be. So I'll just send it in the chat real quick.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned attire, and we did a seminar on, what to wear to this, because we have an annual symposium every day. So it's a conference where students present posters, etc. And we did a seminar many years ago on, kind of what to wear. But I know that professional dress is always changing. So in networking situations, such as our symposium or something like that, do you have recommendations for students? Because I feel like a lot of academia type conferences that the dress has become more casual. But if they're presenting a poster or something, maybe like you said, that's an opportunity to be a little bit more dressed up. Or
so I would recommend for a symposium type thing, the first, I would probably ask kind of what other people are wearing, but for you all, if you're presenting, I would always recommend at least slacks and a jacket. So whether that be a blazer, whether that be a suit jacket, I would for sure recommend at least a button down or a nice blouse, slacks and a jacket, and then closed-toed shoes. If it is, if there is a chance that you are, meeting people that you could potentially work with, a tie is never a bad idea. I always recommend dress better than you think you need to. So if people are like, okay, jeans and a shirt, then maybe you do jeans and a nice top. I would always rather be overdressed than underdressed, especially when you are trying to make that good first impression. Now, if it is your second year going to the symposium, then, that's a little bit different. If you've kind of felt out how other people are dressed, and you can, dress down a little bit. But if you're presenting, I highly recommend at least slacks and a nice jacket or a blazer.
cool.
Okay, Ingrid, I do see your question. I'm reading it real quick and then I will answer it. Okay, so that's a good question. So yes, sometimes it feels like, okay, I don't really have anything to offer. You offer your network, right? So by building that, you want to make sure it's like, oh, you don't want to be the type of person that's, I want to connect with you because I want this out of you. You want to build that connection to kind of build that relationship, right? And so you're building the trust within one another that right now I may need something of you, but in 3 months or in a year, you may need something of me. And so while you may feel like you don't have anything to offer, you have that network of people that, well, you may not have something to offer. You may be like, oh, I know someone who does have that. And so you just want to make sure that you're not networking just to get something out of someone else. I hope that makes sense. That's a really good question, though, because I think a lot of students do feel that way of like, well, I don't really have anything to offer. You do have something to offer.
Perfect. I'm going to remind everybody that we do have a K-INBRE group on LinkedIn. So if you want to join that to, stay connected with other K-INBRE folks, please join. And Sydney, we appreciate you coming and speaking to us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, Ingrid's the other person that asked to connect with you on LinkedIn. So
yes. Ingrid, I saw, what would you recommend as maintaining connections? I think connecting on LinkedIn is a great way to maintain connections, right? So networking does not have to be ongoing. So that does not mean that Sarah and I need to talk once a month, right? Like it may be we're connected on LinkedIn and that's how we stay connected. And it may be congrats, you've been at your job for 2 years and that kind of thing. And that is maintaining connections. It does not have to be a consistent communication.
And you could also, much like other social media, make posts on LinkedIn that others can follow too. So if you have
Absolutely.
if you have something that you want to, promote about yourself, or you have something that you want to kind of put out to other professional people, you can, and that's a good way to continue those connections also.
Yes, for sure. All right. Thank you all for having me. I sent my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out. Okay. Thoughts on opinions of cold emailing or reaching out to people I haven't met before to get information about the program. By cold emailing, can you provide exactly what you mean by that? I want to make sure I answer this question correctly. Yeah, so if you're just emailing people you haven't met before, I would make sure that the introduction is in there, right? I often get emails from people and it's like 2 lines and it's, hey, I need this thing. Well, I want a little more information. And so as long as it is okay to email people and get information about a program. But feel free to, or I would recommend introducing yourself, sharing that you're interested in that program or sharing that you just need a little bit more information. I have a lot of students that are looking for more information before they apply to a job or before they apply to a graduate program or anything like that. I recommend getting get all of your information prior to applying, because you don't want to waste your time or their time if it's something that you're not really interested in. And so I recommend getting all of that information. So email is a great way to do that. So whether you've met them before or not, just make sure that you have that introduction in there. I'm a student here. I'm interested in this program and I want a little bit more information. Would you be willing? And so that is always my thing of like, would you be willing to help out, especially if that's not their job? And so if someone reached out to me that was interested in a program that I did, so if they were interested in going to KU for higher education administration, I'm fine with people reaching out to me. But it's always nice if that, would you be willing, or do you have time to share a little bit of information with me on the program that you've been in or the program that you work for? So if you're asking someone to give you information on something that's not their job, it's always really nice, even if it is their job, to say, do you have time to share a little bit of this information with me, and acknowledge that they're, giving some of that information to you and taking the time to do that. Good question, though. All right. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to email, reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn, message me on there. Any of that works.
Awesome. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you all for coming and listening today.
Bye-bye.
Bye.